The rain came down like bullets that night. Cold, sharp, relentless. Most people ran for cover, umbrellas flipped inside out, car doors slamming shut as engines roared to life. But not Marcus. He stood there in the middle of Fletcher Street, soaked to the bone, his thin jacket clinging to his shoulders like a second skin. His sneakers were full of water, squeaking with every step. But he didn't care, because 20 feet ahead of him, crumpled against the brick wall of an abandoned bookstore, was an old man, white hair plastered to his forehead, trembling hands gripping a wooden cane, eyes barely open. Marcus didn't think. He just moved. He ran through the storm, his heartbeat louder than the thunder, and dropped to his knees beside the man. Sir, can you hear me?" The old man's lips moved, but no sound came out. Marcus looked around. Empty street. No help. No one. Just him and a stranger who might not make it through the night. And Marcus made a choice. A choice that would change everything. But he didn't know that yet. He didn't know that in less than 24 hours, his name would be spoken in rooms he'd never even dreamed of entering. He didn't know that the man he was saving wasn't just any man. And he didn't know that the people watching him right now, from across the street, hidden in the shadows of expensive cars, were taking notes. All Marcus knew was this: someone needed help, and he was going to give it, even if it costs him everything. Marcus Cole was 16 years old. 16 years of hand-me-down clothes, government-assisted lunches, and a mother who worked 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. He lived in the Southside Projects, 4th floor, apartment 1C. The elevator hadn't worked in 2 years. The hallway smelled like mildew and fried fish. But it was home, and Marcus never complained. Not when his shoes had holes. Not when his phone was 5 years old and cracked down the middle. Not even when kids at school laughed at the way his jeans stopped to inches above his ankles. He just kept his head down, did his homework, helped his mama, and stayed out of trouble. That's what she always told him. "Baby, you stay out of trouble. You hear me? This world doesn't give second chances to boys who look like you." So he listened. He walked the long way home to avoid the corners where dealers posted up. He said yes ma'am and no sir even when people didn't deserve it. And he worked. Every day after school, Marcus stocked shelves at Murphy's Corner Store. 4 hours a shift. $9 an hour. It wasn't much, but it helped. His mama cried the first time he handed her his paycheck. She didn't say anything, just held him tight and cried into his shoulder. Marcus learned early that love wasn't about words. It was about showing up. It was about sacrifice. And that night, in the middle of a storm that felt like the end of the world, Marcus showed up. He wrapped his arm around the old man's shoulders and pulled him to his feet. The man was heavier than he looked, weak, shaking. "I got you," Marcus whispered. "I got you, sir. Just hold on." The old man's eyes flickered open for a second. Blue eyes, faded but sharp, like he was looking right through Marcus. And then they closed again. Marcus dragged him through the rain, step by step, until they reached the awning of a closed diner. It wasn't much, but it was dry. Marcus sat the man down gently, then pulled off his own jacket and wrapped it around the old man's shoulders. His own shirt was drenched. His teeth started to chatter, but he didn't care. He pulled out his phone. Cracked screen, battery at 11%. He dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? I'm on Fletcher Street near the old bookstore. There's a man here. He's elderly, and he collapsed. I think he needs an ambulance. Is he breathing? Marcus leaned closer. The man's chest rose and fell, shallow but steady. Yes, ma'am. He's breathing. Help is on the way. Stay with him? Marcus stayed. He sat beside the old man, shivering in the cold, watching the rain pour down just a few feet away. He didn't know the man's name, didn't know where he came from, didn't know if he had family, friends, money, or nothing at all. But it didn't matter, because Marcus had been taught one thing his whole life. You do the right thing, not because someone's watching, not because you'll get something in return, but because it's right. And so he sat there in the cold, in the dark, waiting for help to arrive. Minutes felt like hours. The storm raged on, and across the street, inside a black SUV with tinted windows, Two men sat watching. One of them held a phone to his ear. "Yes, sir," he said quietly. "We found him, and sir, you're not going to believe what just happened." The ambulance came 20 minutes later. Paramedics rushed out, radios crackling, stretcher wheels rattling against wet pavement. They checked the old man's pulse, his breathing, and his eyes. One of them looked at Marcus. "You're the one who called." Marcus nodded. "You saved this man's life, kid. Another 30 minutes out here and he wouldn't have made it." Marcus didn't say anything. He just watched as they loaded the old man onto the stretcher. Before they closed the ambulance doors, the old man's eyes opened one more time. He looked directly at Marcus, and he smiled. A small, tired smile. Then the doors slammed shut and the ambulance disappeared into the storm. Marcus stood there for a long moment, water dripping from his hair, his heart still racing. Then he turned and walked home, up 4 flights of stairs, past Miss Jenkins' door where gospel music hummed softly, past the smell of someone's late-night cooking, into apartment 1-C. His mama was asleep on the couch, still in her work uniform, the TV flickering quietly. Marcus grabbed a towel, dried off as best he could, and collapsed onto the air mattress in the corner of the living room. He didn't think about the old man, didn't think about the storm, didn't think about the fact that he'd just missed his evening shift at the store and would probably get yelled at tomorrow. He just closed his eyes and slept. He had no idea that across town, in a penthouse suite overlooking the city, phones were ringing, meetings were being called, lawyers were being woken up, and a plan was being set in motion. A plan that would bring the world crashing down on Marcus Cole's life. Not to destroy him, but to change him forever. The next morning came too fast. Marcus woke to the sound of his mama's voice, sharp and urgent. "Marcus, Marcus, baby, wake up." He blinked, groggy, his body still aching from the cold. "Mama, what?" "There are people outside." Marcus sat up. "What?" "People outside our building. With cameras." His heart dropped. "Cameras." He stumbled to the window and pulled back the torn curtain. Down below, on the cracked sidewalk of Fletcher Street, were vans. News vans. 3 of them. Reporters adjusting microphones. Cameramen are setting up tripods. And a crowd. Neighbors, kids, people Marcus had never seen before. All gathering, pointing, whispering. "What's going on?" His mama whispered beside him, her hand gripping his shoulder. Marcus didn't know. He didn't understand. All he did was help someone. That's it. But the world outside looked like something big was about to happen, and Marcus was right in the center of it. He pulled on a hoodie, still damp from last night, and headed for the door. Marcus, wait! But he was already out. Down the stairs, through the lobby, and the second he stepped outside, the cameras turned. All of them. Flashes popped. Voices exploded. "Marcus, Marcus Cole, is it true you saved a man's life last night? Did you know who he was? How does it feel to be a hero?" Marcus froze. A hero? He wasn't a hero. He just helped. A woman in a red blazer pushed through the crowd, microphone in hand, camera trailing her like a shadow. "Marcus, I'm Dana Ellis with Channel 7 News. Can we talk for a moment?" Marcus looked around, overwhelmed, his chest tightening. "I don't know what's happening." Dana smiled, the kind of smile that looked practiced, polished. "You helped an elderly man last night during the storm, correct?" "Yes, ma'am." "Do you know who that man was?" Marcus shook his head. Dana's smile grew wider. "That was Vincent Harlow." The name hung in the air. Marcus didn't react, because he didn't know who that was. Dana's expression faltered slightly, like she expected more. "Vincent Harlow," she repeated. "Billionaire philanthropist. One of the wealthiest men in the country. Founder of Harlow Industries." Marcus blinked. "Billionaire? You saved his life, Marcus. And now the whole city wants to know your story." The crowd pressed closer. More questions? More cameras. Marcus felt like he couldn't breathe. This wasn't right. This wasn't what he wanted. He just helped someone. Why was this happening? Then, cutting through the noise, a voice. "Calm, steady, that's enough." Everyone turned. A man stepped out of a black SUV parked at the curb. Tall, dark suit, salt and pepper beard. He walked with a kind of confidence that made people move out of his way without him saying a word. He stopped in front of Marcus. "My name is Julian Cross," he said. "I work for Mr. Harlow. He'd like to meet you." Marcus stared at him. "Meet me?" "Yes, today, if you're willing." The crowd murmured. Cameras clicked. Marcus looked back at his apartment building. His mama stood in the doorway now, arms crossed, watching. She gave him a small nod. "Your choice, baby." Marcus turned back to Julian. "Okay." The car was nicer than anything Marcus had ever been inside. Leather seats, tinted windows, a faint smell of cologne and coffee. Julian sat across from him, typing something on his phone. Marcus stared out the window as they left the projects behind. The buildings got taller, cleaner, shinier. They crossed into a part of the city Marcus had only seen on TV. Downtown, where the people wore suits and carried briefcases and walked like they owned the world. The car pulled up to a tower, glass and steel, 50 stories high. The sign at the entrance read, Harlow Tower. Julian opened the door. "This way." Marcus followed, his old sneakers squeaking against the marble floor of the lobby. People stared, not because they recognized him, but because he didn't belong. Not here, not in a place like this. They took an elevator to the top floor. The doors opened into a massive office, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city, a desk the size of Marcus's entire living room, and sitting behind it, in a wheelchair wrapped in a blanket, was the old man, Vincent Harlow. His blue eyes were brighter now, stronger. He smiled when he saw Marcus. "Come in, son." Marcus stepped forward slowly. Vincent gestured to a chair. "Sit, please." Marcus sat. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Vincent leaned forward slightly. "You saved my life." Marcus shook his head. I just did what anyone would do." Vincent's smile faded. "No," he said softly. "You did what most people wouldn't." He reached for a folder on his desk and slid it across to Marcus. "I had my team look into you. I hope you don't mind." Marcus opened it. Inside were papers, reports, his school records, his work history, even a photo of his apartment building. Marcus's stomach twisted. "Why?" "Because," Vincent said, "I wanted to know who you are. And what I found impressed me." He tapped the folder. "Straight A's, perfect attendance, working after school to help your mother, never been in trouble, not once." Vincent's eyes locked onto Marcus's. "You're remarkable, Marcus Cole, and I want to help you." Marcus's throat tightened. "Help me how?" Vincent smiled again. "I'm going to change your life." Marcus didn't know what to say. Change his life. How? Vincent pressed a button on his desk, and Julian stepped forward, handing Marcus a large envelope. "Open it," Vincent said gently. Marcus's hands trembled as he tore it open. Inside was a letter, embossed, formal, heavy paper. He read the first line. "Dear Mr. Marcus Cole, you have been granted a full scholarship to Kensington Prep Academy." Marcus stopped. Kensington Prep. He knew that name. Everyone did. It was the school where senators' kids went, where CEOs sent their children, where tuition costs more than his mama made in 2 years. "I don't understand," Marcus whispered. Vincent leaned back in his chair. "You're brilliant, Marcus, but you're trapped in a system that wasn't built for you. Kensington will give you opportunities you've never had. The best teachers, the best resources, connections that will open every door." Marcus looked up. "I can't afford this." "You don't have to. It's taken care of. Tuition, books, uniforms, everything." Marcus felt his chest tighten. This was too much. Too big. "Why me?" Vincent's expression softened. "Because you didn't walk past me. Because when the world was running for cover, you stopped. You saw someone in need and you acted. That's rare, Marcus. That kind of character can't be taught. And I believe you deserve a chance." Marcus stared at the letter. A chance. A real chance. But something felt heavy in his chest. "What about my mama?" Vincent nodded, like he'd been expecting that question. "We've arranged for her rent to be covered for the next 2 years. And she receive a monthly stipend to replace the income you were bringing in from your job." Marcus's eyes burned. He blinked fast, refusing to let the tears fall. I don't know what to say. Vincent smiled. Say yes. Marcus looked down at the letter again. His whole life, he'd been told to keep his head down, work hard, stay small. But now someone was offering him the chance to be more, to rise, to become something bigger than the projects, bigger than the corner store, bigger than the life he'd always known. He thought about his mama, about the tears she cried when he gave her his paycheck, about the way she smiled even when she was exhausted. She deserved better, and maybe this was how Marcus could give it to her. He looked up at Vincent. Yes. Vincent's smile widened. Good. You start Monday. When Marcus got home, his mama was waiting. She stood in the kitchen, hands on the counter, staring at nothing. Mama? She turned, and he saw the tears in her eyes. Baby, what did that man say to you? Marcus walked over and handed her the letter. She read it slowly, her lips moving with each word. When she finished, she covered her mouth with her hand. Marcus, it's real, Mama. He's paying for everything. School, rent, everything. You don't have to work so hard anymore. She shook her head, tears streaming now. I don't understand. Why? Because I helped him, and he wants to help me. She pulled Marcus into her arms and held him tight. My baby, she whispered. My beautiful, kind baby. They stood there for a long time, and for the first time in years, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Monday came fast. Too fast. Marcus stood outside the gates of Kensington Prep, staring up at the massive stone building that looked more like a castle than a school. Kids poured out of luxury cars, BMWs, Mercedes, Teslas. They wore designer clothes, carried expensive bags, and laughed like they didn't have a care in the world. And then there was Marcus, wearing his new uniform, stiff and uncomfortable, carrying a backpack that Julian had given him. Standing alone, he took a breath and walked through the gates. The hallways were nothing like his old school. Clean, bright, lockers that actually closed, floors that didn't creak. Marcus found his homeroom and stepped inside. Every head turned. The room went quiet. Marcus felt their eyes on him, judging, calculating. He found an empty seat in the back and sat down. A girl with blonde hair and a perfect ponytail leaned over to her friend. Who's that? Her friend shrugged. No idea. Probably a scholarship kid. They laughed. Quiet, but Marcus heard it. He kept his eyes on his desk. The teacher walked in, a tall woman with glasses and a tight bun. Good morning, class. We have a new student today. Marcus Cole. She gestured toward him. Everyone turned again. Marcus wanted to disappear. Marcus comes to us from Fletcher High. A few kids snickered. Fletcher High. The school in the projects. The school where metal detectors were at the entrance and police cars were always parked outside. The teacher cleared her throat. Let's make him feel welcome. No one said a word. The day dragged on. Class after class. Stares. Whispers. In the cafeteria, Marcus sat alone. He opened the lunch he'd packed left over. Chicken and rice his mama made and started eating. Across the room, a group of boys sat at a long table. They wore blazers even though they didn't have to. Designer sneakers, watches that probably cost more than Marcus's rent. One of them, a tall kid with slicked back hair and a smirk, pointed at Marcus. Check out the new guy. His friends looked over. Scholarship kid? Definitely. The tall kid stood up and walked over. His name was Bryce Wellington, son of a real estate mogul, captain of the lacrosse team, and someone who didn't like being anything less than the center of attention. He stopped in front of Marcus's table. You're Marcus, right? Marcus looked up. Yeah. Bryce smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. Let me give you some advice. This school, it's not like where you came from. People here earned their place. We don't do handouts. Marcus's jaw tightened. I didn't ask for a handout. Bryce leaned down, his voice low. You're only here because some rich old man felt sorry for you. Don't forget that? He straightened up and walked back to his table. His friends laughed. Marcus sat there, fists clenched under the table, staring at his food. He wanted to leave. Wanted to go back to Fletcher where at least he knew who he was. But he didn't, because his mama's face flashed in his mind. Her tears, her smile. This wasn't just for him. It was for her. So he stayed. and he made a promise to himself. He wouldn't let them break him, no matter what. The first week at Kensington Prep was hell, not because of the classes. Marcus could handle the work. In fact, he was ahead in most subjects. But the people, they were a different kind of challenge. Every day, it was something new. Bryce accidentally knocked Marcus's books out of his hands in the hallway. Girls would whisper and laugh when he walked by. In chemistry class, Marcus's lab partner refused to work with him, claiming she worked better alone. The teacher didn't say a word. Marcus kept his head down, did his work, stayed quiet. But inside, the anger was building. Not the loud, explosive kind. The quiet kind. The kind that burned slow and steady. One afternoon, Marcus sat in the library working on a history essay. The library was massive. 3 floors, thousands of books, leather chairs, marble tables. It felt more like a museum than a school library. Marcus had found a corner on the 2nd floor where no one bothered him. He was deep into his research when he heard footsteps. He looked up. A girl stood a few feet away. She had dark skin, natural hair pulled into a high puff, and eyes that seemed to see right through him. "You're Marcus, right?" He nodded. She sat down across from him without asking. "I'm Amara Hughes." "Hey." She tilted her head, studying him. "You're the one everyone's talking about. The kid Vincent Harlow saved." Marcus frowned. "He didn't save me. I saved him." Amara smiled. "I know. I saw the news." She leaned back in her chair. "People here don't like you." Marcus looked down at his notebook. "I noticed. It's not personal. They just don't like anyone who doesn't fit their idea of what belongs here." "And you?" Amara shrugged. "I've been here since 6th grade. My parents are doctors. We're comfortable, but we're not them." She gestured vaguely toward the windows, as if them was everyone outside this room. "So they tolerate me, but they don't include me. And honestly, I'm fine with that." Marcus looked at her. For the first time since he'd walked through those gates, someone was talking to him like a human being. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked. Amara smiled. "Because you look like you need to hear it, and because I think you're going to surprise a lot of people here." She stood up. "See you around, Marcus." And she walked away. Marcus sat there for a moment, her words echoing in his head. Surprise them? Maybe she was right. 2 weeks later, the school held its annual academic decathlon trials. It was a big deal at Kensington. The team competed nationally, brought home trophies, scholarships, prestige. Bryce Wellington had been on the team for 3 years. He was the captain, the star, the one everyone expected to lead them to victory again. Marcus hadn't planned on trying out, but Amara convinced him. "You're smarter than half the people here," she said one day at lunch, "and you'd destroy Bryce in any category. You should do it." Marcus hesitated. "I don't want to make things worse." Amara leaned forward. "Marcus, you're already the target. You might as well give them a reason to be scared of you." So he signed up. The trials were held in the auditorium. Students filled the seats. Teachers sat in the front row with clipboards. And on stage, 20 students stood in a line. Marcus was at the end. Bryce was in the center, smiling as he'd already won. The moderator, Mr. Callahan, stepped up to the microphone. "Welcome to this year's academic decathlon trials. We'll be testing you in mathematics, literature, science, and history. The top 6 will make the team." He looked down at his notes. "Let's begin." The questions started easily. Basic math, simple history. Marcus answered everyone correctly. So did Bryce. So did a few others. But as the questions got harder, students started dropping out. Wrong answers, long pauses, nervous laughter. By round 5, only 4 students were left. Marcus, Bryce, a girl named Sophie, and a quiet kid named David. Mr. Callahan smiled. "Final round. Sudden death. 1 question? First to answer correctly wins the top spot." The room went silent. Bryce cracked his knuckles, cocky as ever. Marcus took a breath. Mr. Callahan read the question. In 1903, W.E.B. Du Bois published a collection of essays that became one of the most important works in African American literature. Name the book. Marcus's hand shot up. So did Bryce's. But Marcus was faster. The souls of black folk. Mr. Callahan smiled. Correct. The room erupted. Applause. Gasps. Whispers. Bryce's face went red. He stared at Marcus, jaw clenched, fists tight. Sophie and David clapped politely. Amara, sitting in the third row, grinned and gave Marcus a thumbs up. Marcus didn't smile. He just looked at Bryce. And in that moment, something shifted. Bryce had underestimated him. They all had. But now they knew. Marcus Cole wasn't just some charity case. He belonged here. And he was just getting started. After the trials, Marcus walked through the hallway toward his locker. He could feel the stares. But this time, they were different. Not mocking. Not dismissive. Curious. Respectful. Some even nodded as he passed. He opened his locker and grabbed his bag. Then he heard a voice behind him. Cole! He turned. Bryce stood there. Hands in his pockets, face unreadable. Marcus waited. Bryce stepped closer. You got lucky today. Marcus didn't blink. No, I was just better. Bryce's jaw tightened. For a second, Marcus thought he might swing. But Bryce just smiled. A cold, dangerous smile. Enjoy it while it lasts. He turned and walked away. Marcus watched him go. He knew this wasn't over. Bryce Wellington didn't lose. And when people like him lost, they didn't take it well. But Marcus wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Because for the first time in his life, he realized something. He had power. Not money, not connections, but something stronger. Intelligence, heart, and the will to fight for what he earned. And no one, not Bryce, not this school, not anyone was going to take that away from him. But then Bryce turned and walked out. Tyler and Josh followed. The door slammed behind them. Marcus stood there, his heart pounding, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He'd done it. He'd stood up to Bryce Wellington, and he hadn't backed down. But as the rush faded, a new feeling settled in. Worrying. Because Marcus knew guys like Bryce. They didn't just walk away. They waited. They planned. And they struck when you least expected it. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay on his air mattress, staring at the ceiling, replaying the confrontation over and over. His mama was asleep in the bedroom, her soft snoring the only sound in the apartment. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Amara. Heard about what happened in the locker room. You okay? Marcus typed back. Yeah, I'm fine. Bryce is a snake. Watch your back. I will. Marcus set his phone down and closed his eyes. Watch your back. He'd been doing that his whole life. Watching. Waiting. Staying one step ahead of trouble. But this felt different. This wasn't the streets. This wasn't corner boys or bad cops or bad luck. This was something new, and Marcus wasn't sure he knew how to fight it. The day before Nationals, the team had their final practice. Mr. Callahan ran them through drills, rapid-fire questions, and team coordination exercises. Marcus was sharp, focused, but he could feel Bryce watching him the entire time. After practice, Mr. Callahan called Marcus over. Cole, can I speak with you for a moment? Marcus nodded. They stepped into Mr. Callahan's office, a small room lined with bookshelves and framed debate trophies. Mr. Callahan sat down, gesturing for Marcus to do the same. I wanted to check in with you, he said. I know this environment can be challenging. Marcus didn't say anything. Mr. Callahan leaned forward. You're one of the most talented students I've coached in years. Your knowledge, your quick thinking, your composure, it's all exceptional. Thank you, sir. But talent isn't enough, not here. You need to be mentally prepared for what's coming. Nationals is high pressure, high stakes, and unfortunately, there will be people on our team and on others who will try to rattle you. Marcus met his eyes. I can handle it. Mr. Callahan studied him for a moment, then nodded. I believe you can. Just remember you earned your spot on this team. Don't let anyone make you doubt that. Marcus left the office feeling a little lighter. Someone believed in him, not because Vince and Harlow told them to, not because it looked good, but because Marcus had proven himself. And tomorrow, he'd prove it again. Nationals were held at a convention center downtown. 12 schools from across the state. Hundreds of students, parents, teachers, reporters. The energy was electric. Marcus stepped off the bus with his team. wearing his Kensington prep blazer, his heart racing. This was it, the biggest stage he'd ever been on. Amara, who'd come along to support, squeezed his shoulder. "You got this." Marcus nodded. Inside, the teams gathered in a massive auditorium. Rows of seats, a huge stage with podiums and screens. Cameras are positioned around the room. Kensington's team found their section and took a seat. Bryce sat at one end, Marcus at the other. The moderator took the stage. "Welcome to the State Academic Decathlon Championships. Today, 12 teams will compete across 4 categories: mathematics, science, literature, and history. The team with the highest combined score will be crowned state champion and move on to nationals." The crowd applauded. Marcus's palms were sweating. He wiped them on his pants. The competition began. Round 1. Mathematics. Marcus was Kensington's rep. He walked up to the podium, his legs feeling like jelly. Across from him stood a girl from Ashford Academy, known for its math program. The moderator read the first question, complex calculus. Marcus closed his eyes, visualized the equation, and worked through it step by step. He buzzed in. -12 over pi. Correct. The crowd clapped. Marcus exhaled. 1 down. The round continued. Question after question. Marcus didn't miss a single one. By the end, Kensington was in first place. Bryce clapped slowly as Marcus returned to his seat, his expression unreadable. Round 2. Literature. Sophie represented Kensington. She was brilliant, quick, and confident. Kensington stayed in the lead. Round 3. Science. David stepped up. He struggled on a few questions but held his ground. Kensington dropped to second place, just behind Ashford. The tension was thick. Everything came down to the final round. History? And Bryce was up. Bryce walked to the podium as if he owned it. Confident, smiling. He answered the first 3 questions perfectly. The crowd loved him. Then came question 4. In 1963, which civil rights leader delivered the "I Have a Dream" speech during the March on Washington? Bryce buzzed in immediately. Malcolm X. The room went silent. The moderator frowned. "I'm sorry, that's incorrect." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Bryce's face went white. "Wait. The correct answer is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr." Bryce stood there, frozen. He'd blown it. The question was passed to Ashford's representative, who answered correctly. Ashford took the lead. Bryce returned to his seat, his jaw clenched, his eyes down. Sophie looked worried. David looked devastated. And Mr. Callahan looked tense. The final question was worth double points. Whoever answered it correctly would win. The moderator looked at the remaining competitors. "This question is open to all teams. First to buzz in gets to answer." Marcus felt his heart pounding in his chest. This was it. Everything came down to this moment. The moderator read the question. Who was the first African American to serve on the United States Supreme Court? Marcus's hand slammed down on the buzzer. Every head turned. The moderator nodded. Kensington Prep, Marcus Cole. Marcus stood up slowly, his mouth dry. He could feel every eye in the room on him. He took a breath and answered. Thurgood Marshall, appointed by President Lyndon B. Johnson in 1967. Silence. Then, correct. The room exploded. Cheers. Applause. Screams. Kensington Prep had won. Marcus stood there, stunned as his teammates rushed toward him. Sophie hugged him. David clapped him on the back. Even Mr. Callahan was grinning. But Bryce sat in his seat, staring at the floor, silent, humiliated. And Marcus realized something. This wasn't just a win. This was a statement. He'd proven that he belonged. Not because of Vincent Harlow, not because of charity, but because he was smart, capable, and strong enough to stand on any stage and compete with anyone. And no one, not Bryce, not the whispers, not the doubt, could take that away from him. The bus ride back to Kensington was loud. Music blasting. Students chanting. Sophie and David recount every moment of the competition. But Marcus sat quietly by the window, watching the city lights blur past. He should have felt happy, victorious. But something felt off. Bryce hadn't said a word since they left the convention center. He sat at the front of the bus, headphones on, staring straight ahead. Amara, sitting next to Marcus, nudged him. "You okay?" Marcus nodded. "Yeah, just tired." She smiled. "You were incredible up there. You know that, right?" Marcus looked at her. "I just answered a question." "No," Amara said firmly. "You did more than that. You showed everyone in that room and everyone at this school that you're not just some feel-good story. You're the real deal." Marcus wanted to believe her, but the doubt was still there. Quiet, persistent, like a shadow he couldn't shake. When they arrived back at school, parents were waiting in the parking lot. Hugs, pictures, congratulations. Marcus's mama was there too, standing by the curb in her work uniform, her face glowing with pride. Marcus ran to her. She pulled him into her arms and held him tight. "My baby," she whispered. "My brilliant baby." Marcus buried his face in her shoulder, and for a moment everything else disappeared. The school, the competition, the whispers. All that mattered was this: his mama and the fact that he'd made her proud. That night, Marcus's phone buzzed with messages. Congratulations from classmates, texts from Amara, even a message from Mr. Callahan praising his performance. But one message stood out. It was from an unknown number. "Congratulations, Marcus. You've earned everything that's coming to you." Marcus frowned. He didn't recognize the number. He typed back, "Who is this?" No response. Marcus stared at the message for a long moment, then set his phone down. Probably just a prank, or a wrong number. He didn't think about it again, but he should have. The next morning, Marcus woke up to chaos. His phone was buzzing nonstop. Texts, calls, notifications. He grabbed it, confused. Then he saw the email. Subject, urgent, academic integrity investigation. Marcus's stomach dropped. He opened it. "Dear Marcus Cole, it has come to our attention that there may have been a breach of academic integrity during the State Academic Decathlon Championships. An anonymous report has been filed alleging that you received unauthorized assistance before the competition. The administration will be conducting a formal investigation. You are required to meet with Principal Donovan tomorrow at 8 a.m. Failure to attend will result in immediate suspension. Sincerely, Kensington Prep Administration." Marcus read it 3 times. Unauthorized assistance. Cheating. His hands shook. He hadn't cheated. He'd studied for weeks. He'd worked harder than anyone. But someone was trying to destroy him, and Marcus had a pretty good idea who. Marcus barely slept that night. He kept replaying everything. Every question, every answer, every moment. There was nothing. He hadn't cheated. But would that matter? His mama stayed up with him, holding his hand. "Baby, the truth always comes out," she said softly. "You didn't do anything wrong. They'll see that." Marcus wanted to believe her, but he'd seen how the world worked. Sometimes the truth didn't matter. Sometimes the story people wanted to believe was stronger than the facts. The next morning, Marcus walked into Principal Donovan's office. It was a large room, dark wood, leather chairs, shelves lined with awards and plaques. Principal Donovan sat behind his desk, a thin man with gray hair and sharp eyes. Mr. Callahan was there too, standing by the window, and sitting across from the principal was Bryce Wellington. Marcus's blood ran cold. "Sit down, Mr. Cole," Principal Donovan said. Marcus sat. Principal Donovan folded his hands on the desk. "An allegation has been made that you had prior knowledge of the competition questions, specifically that you were given access to the question pool before the event." Marcus's heart pounded. "That's not true, Mr. Wellington here claims he saw you with a document the night before the competition, a document that appeared to contain practice questions, remarkably similar to those asked during the event." Marcus turned to Bryce. Bryce didn't look at him. "I never saw any document," Marcus said firmly. "I studied from textbooks, from the library, from online resources. I didn't cheat." Principal Donovan leaned back. "Mr. Wellington, do you have any evidence to support this claim?" Bryce finally looked up. "I saw him with papers in the library. He was looking at them, then hid them when I walked by." "That's a lie," Marcus said, his voice rising. "I was studying my notes, my own notes that I wrote. Then you should have no problem providing those notes, Principal Donovan said. Marcus froze. His notes were at home, handwritten, pages and pages of them. I can bring them. Good. Do that. Until then, you're suspended from all academic team activities, pending the outcome of this investigation. What? Marcus stood up. You're suspending me because of a lie. I'm suspending you, Principal Donovan said coldly, because there's an accusation that needs to be investigated. If you're innocent, you'll be reinstated. If not, you'll face expulsion. Marcus felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. Expulsion, everything he'd worked for, everything his mama sacrificed for, gone because of Bryce Wellington's lie. Mr. Callahan finally spoke. Principal Donovan, I've worked with Marcus for months. He's one of the hardest working students I've ever coached. I find it very difficult to believe. Your opinion is noted, Mr. Callahan, but protocol must be followed. Marcus looked at Bryce. Bryce met his eyes and smiled. Marcus walked out of that office in a daze. The hallways felt like they were closing in. Students stared, whispered. Word had already spread. Marcus Cole, the scholarship kid, the cheater. Amara found him by his locker. Marcus, I heard. This is insane. You didn't cheat. I know, Marcus said quietly. Then we fight it. We get evidence. It doesn't matter, Marcus interrupted. They've already made up their minds. Don't say that. Marcus looked at her. Amara, I'm a black kid from the projects in a school full of millionaires. They were looking for a reason to get rid of me. Bryce just gave them one. Amara's eyes filled with tears. That's not fair. No, Marcus said. It's not. He closed his locker and walked away. That night, Marcus sat on the fire escape outside his apartment. The city stretched out below him. Lights, noise. Life continued as if nothing had happened. But for Marcus, everything had stopped. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. The same one from before. You should have stayed in your place. Marcus stared at it, and something inside him shifted. He wasn't going to run. He wasn't going to hide. He wasn't going to let Bryce Wellington destroy him. If they wanted a fight, he'd give them one. But not the way they expected. Marcus stood up, his jaw set, his mind clear. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Mr. Cross, it's Marcus Cole. I need to speak with Mr. Harlow. 24 hours later, Marcus sat in Vincent Harlow's office again. This time, the room felt different, heavier. Vincent sat across from him, his sharp blue eyes studying Marcus carefully. Julian Cross stood by the door, arms crossed. Tell me everything, Vincent said. Marcus did. He told him about Bryce, about the accusations, about the suspension, about the text messages. When he finished, Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Then he leaned forward. Marcus shook his head. Because when I was lying on that street, cold and dying, you didn't see a rich man. You didn't see an opportunity. You saw a human being who needed help. And you gave it? No hesitation. No expectation of reward. Vincent's voice was steady, but there was fire in it. That's rare. And it's valuable. And I'll be damned if I let some entitled brat destroy you because he's threatened by your talent. He turned to Julian. Make the call. Julian nodded and stepped out. Vincent looked back at Marcus. You're going to go back to that school. You're going to walk in with your head high. And you're going to let me handle the rest. What are you going to do? Vincent smiled. What I do best. Remind people who hold the power. The next morning, Marcus walked back into Kensington Prep. But this time, he wasn't alone. Vincent Harlow's legal team had sent a letter to Principal Donovan overnight, a letter that outlined the lack of evidence, the reliance on hearsay, and the potential legal consequences of pursuing baseless accusations against a scholarship student. But that wasn't all. Vincent had made a few calls, to board members, to donors, to people whose names carried weight, and suddenly, Principal Donovan's hands were tied. When Marcus walked into the principal's office that morning, the atmosphere was different. Principal Donovan sat behind his desk, his face tight. Mr. Callahan was there. So was Bryce. But this time, Bryce wasn't smiling. Mr. Cole, Principal Donovan said stiffly, after further review, we've determined that there is insufficient evidence to support the claims. made against you. The suspension is lifted. You're reinstated to the academic team." Marcus didn't react. He just stared at Principal Donovan and Mr. Wellington. Principal Donovan's jaw clenched. Mr. Wellington has been removed from his position as team captain. He'll remain on the team, but under probation for filing a false report. Bryce's head snapped up. "What? You can't. It's already done," Principal Donovan said coldly. Bryce looked at Marcus, his face red, his fists shaking. But he didn't say anything, because for the first time in his life, Bryce Wellington had lost. Completely. That afternoon, the whole school knew. Marcus Cole had been cleared. Bryce Wellington had been exposed, and the power dynamic had shifted. In the cafeteria, Marcus sat with Amara. Students who'd avoided him before now nodded as they passed. Some even stopped to congratulate him. Bryce sat alone at his usual table. No friends. No followers. Just him. Amara leaned over. "How does it feel?" Marcus thought about it. "Weird," he admitted. "I thought I'd feel, I don't know, victorious, but I just feel tired." Amara nodded. "That's because you're not like them. You didn't want to destroy Bryce, you just wanted fairness." Marcus looked at her. "Is that weak?" "No," Amara said firmly. "That's strong. That's who you are." Marcus smiled. Maybe she was right. A week later, the academic team competed at nationals. They didn't win first place. They came in third, but Marcus was named the top individual scorer in the history category. His name was announced over the loudspeaker. His photo was taken, and his mama, sitting in the audience, cried tears of joy. After the ceremony, Vincent Harlow found Marcus outside the venue. "Congratulations," Vincent said, shaking his hand. "Thank you, sir, for everything." Vincent smiled. "You don't owe me thanks, Marcus. You earned all of this. I just made sure people didn't stand in your way." He paused. "But I do want to ask you something." "What? What do you want to do? After high school?" Marcus hesitated. No one had ever asked him that before. "I don't know," he admitted. "I just want to make my mama proud. And maybe help other kids like me. Kids who don't think they have a shot." Vincent nodded slowly. "Then let's make sure you get that chance." He handed Marcus a business card. "When you're ready, call me. I have a foundation that funds scholarships, mentorship programs, and community projects. I could use someone like you, someone who understands what it's like to fight for a seat at the table." Marcus looked down at the card, then back at Vincent. "I won't let you down. I know you won't." 3 years later, Marcus Cole graduated from Kensington Prep at the top of his class. He received a full scholarship to Stanford University. He majored in education and social policy, and when he came home during breaks, he volunteered at community centers in the Southside projects, tutoring kids, mentoring them, showing them that there was a way out, a way up, but only if they were willing to work for it. His mama was still an apartment one to see, but the building had been renovated, new elevators, fresh paint, safe hallways, thanks to a donation from the Harlow Foundation. And Marcus never forgot where he came from, or the night he helped an old man in a storm, because that night didn't just change his life. It taught him something, that kindness isn't weakness, that doing the right thing, even when no one's watching, matters, and that sometimes the smallest act of compassion can create a ripple that changes everything. Bryce Wellington, he graduated too, went to an Ivy League school, got a job at his father's company, but he never forgot Marcus Cole. And years later, when their paths crossed at a business conference, Bryce walked up to Marcus and extended his hand. "Cole!" Marcus looked at him. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Bryce said something Marcus never expected. "I was wrong. About you, about everything. And I'm sorry." Marcus studied him. Then he shook his hand. Apology accepted, because Marcus had learned something else along the way. Forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about freeing yourself. And Marcus was finally free. The lesson: the world will try to tell you who you are, where do you belong, what you deserve. But the truth is this: you are not defined by where you come from. You are defined by what you do with the opportunities you're given. And sometimes the greatest opportunities come from the smallest acts of kindness. So be kind, work hard, stand tall, And never, ever let anyone convince you that you don't belong. Because you do, and your story matters. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of your own struggles or inspired you to keep fighting, do me a favor. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, with a young person who's doubting themselves, with anyone who's ever been told they don't belong. Because stories like this aren't just entertainment, they're reminders that we all have power, that we all have worth, and that sometimes all it takes is one person to believe in us for everything to change. So be that person for someone else, and let's keep lifting each other up, one story at a time. Thank you for watching, and remember, your struggle is not your identity, it's your strength.